Friends, Romans, countrymen, welcome back to Union Smack. Before we get started, as always, the formalities, let's get them out the way. You can find me on Twitter at ThePerfectTenant. You can find Travis on Twitter at TheHabickiTND. You can buy our merchandise, the official Union Smack shirt, the official Habicki TND shirt, the official Reset Button shirt. There's so much. There is absolutely so much we've got going on right now, including my book, The Undertaker, A Trip Down Death Valley, which has just been released by WrestleCrate here in the UK as well. You can find all that on our online shop, unionsmack.bigcartel.com. I think that's all the whoring we've got this week. If there's any more, I'll put it in the outro. So yes, I'm back from For the Love of Wrestling convention. The vlog is up on the channel now, so I urge and encourage you to go and watch that if you haven't already. I've had some very, very good feedback from some very good friends. Even some strangers who I don't know have complimented me on it, so check that out if you can. Now, before we start our Omnibus NXT UK review this week, we are going through episodes 38 to 41. We're finishing up the Coventry leg of the show. We're going to do without giving away spoilers, we're going to do the hideous, absolutely hideous New York shows over WrestleMania weekend. There's some news. We have a couple of, well, I say a couple, we have actually got a good few pieces of UK wrestling news to get through. So we'll race through them as quick as possible because you're busy people, you've got lives to live. Firstly, Eddie Dennis. We haven't seen Eddie Dennis on television for a few weeks. It was reported on April 29th, around the end of April anyway, that he had tore a pectoral muscle and had underwent surgery. I can tell you that surgery was successful, that he'll be out of action for around 6 months. That is unconfirmed as of yet. No one quite knows, but the length of time on the shelf for such an injury is roughly 6 months. For those who don't know, it is the same injury that Eddie Dennis had in January 2018, which stopped him competing in the second annual United Kingdom Championship tournament. He would have been there had it not been for that injury. So it's bad luck, it's bad timing, but he did make enough of a recovery to appear in a non-wrestling role at the Progress Super Strong Style 16 tournament this past week. I say this past week, this past week as I record this. And I believe he reformed his former FSU tag team with Mark Andrews down in Progress. So we wish Eddie Dennis a speedy recovery. I'm sure everybody's got their own opinions on Eddie Dennis. I know I do. Travis does. But we won't go into them just yet because there's more stuff to get through. Next up is Walter. We'll get to Walter later on in this omnibus review. But at Progress Super Strong Style 16, he became a triple champion. He did what Pete Dunne did when he first won the title. He's managed to capture 3 pieces of gold at the same time. He beat Trent Seven on May the 5th to unify the Progress World and Atlas Championships. I believe this is the third time Walter's won the Progress Atlas Championship. But now those 2 titles are unified. And, of course, he is now Progress World Champion, Progress Atlas Champion, and WWE United Kingdom Champion. And it still hurts to say that. It sounds unnatural, and I still don't like it. I don't think I ever will. So congratulations to Walter on that. Next up is an interesting piece of news, actually, for American fans. You'll have heard us talk about World of Sport on Union Smack last year. The revived series, which they branded Season 1 for some reason, the revived series aired over here on ITV across the summer. It was one season, it was 10 episodes. It started off good, it ended questionable. But now you'll be able to see it if you live in America, because World of Sport Wrestling have landed a deal with the American broadcaster Stadium. I've never heard of it. I don't know whether it's just on demand or whether it is, just your standard cable channel. I know it's a free to air sports channel. I did look that much up. But from May the 12th, you will be able in America to watch the entire first season of World of Sport Wrestling. Like I said, comprised of 10 episodes, and you'll be able to see NXT UK stars on there. Viper, who is, of course, Piper Niven. Kaylee Ray is on there. I know there's a few others on there as well. I don't know whether they're going to give you the pilot. So before they recorded the 10 episodes of World of Sport and aired them last year, they did a pilot on Christmas 2017, I believe. So the year before, that went out, and that was just packed with NXT UK stars. So Ligero was there, Ashton Smith, the Coffey Brothers, Mark Andrews was on it, I believe. So if you're interested in that, then look up Stadium in your local town, city, cable provider. Online, I think you can get it as well, because the majority of it is worth watching. You've got your Will Ospreay is on it, Davey Boy Smith Jr. is on it, so it is well worth giving a view if you've got the time and the means to do so. Lastly, in the news this week, there's a little bit of scandal floating around NXT UK. I'm sure you've all heard it. It's probably a little bit of old news by now, but this is an NXT UK episode of our podcast, so I thought it worth mentioning. Rhea Ripley, at the end of April, decided to take part in a live stream. I don't know whether it was on Twitch, whether it was on Twitter, Facebook, whatever it was. I don't do live streams very often. I did one last week on Twitter. No one watched it, so I'm quite glad of that, actually. But the sole purpose of this live stream was so fans could be insulted by Rhea Ripley in character for $15. So they'd tip her $15 through, I don't know, PayPal, Patreon, through, however you tip someone through a live stream. And she'd get into character and she'd insult them. So this went on for a while. Everyone was having fun. And then, just out of nowhere, maybe she was bored, or maybe she'd just run out of things to say. And this isn't an excuse for her. She launched into a tirade. It's the only thing I can call it, a tirade, against one fan. I don't know who they were. And this wasn't a prank. This wasn't a joke. She said the following. She said to this poor unsuspecting fucker, she said, you're a fucking cunthead, you stupid motherfucking faggot, fuck you. Now, everybody, there was uproar. She apologised on Twitter, but people rejected the apology, saying, you only apologised after, we called you out on it. She seemed genuinely sorry, and WWE haven't taken any action against her as of yet. It's only been a week and a bit. They may do. She is currently out with an injury. The sprain in her right foot worsened after the NXT UK tapings in New York, and she's expected to be on the shelf until the beginning of June. That might change. They might bring that forward depending on how the injury, comes along. But what a fucking ridiculously stupid thing to do. It's almost like she forgot she was on a live stream and just launched into this awful, sickening, disgusting tirade. And it's blown over, and I'm sure she won't see any reprimand from it. But at the same time, it's like, what a dickhead. You've got all this momentum going for you in NXT UK. There's talk of you being called up to NXT or even the main roster, though why you want to go there at the minute, fuck knows, it's garbage. You finally look like you're going to get somewhere, and then you do this. You sacrifice everything. And don't think like she'll get to the main roster and it'll blow over, because Vince McMahon will have been informed of this. Triple H already knows about it. So God knows where this is going to go. Hopefully, for Rhea, fingers crossed, it just blows over. Hopefully she sees no comeback or reprimand from it. A lot of people have done much worse in the business. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But, I'm a massive fan of Rhea Ripley. I know a lot of others are. And I just hope that she's not buried or booked shittily for this. And that's the news this week. When we come back, we will have the first 2 episodes of our omnibus for NXT UK over the past month. Until then, I'm going to get a drink, I'm going to make my throat less froggy, and I will leave you in the capable hands of the former WWE United Kingdom Champion. Still hurts. It still cuts to the bone. The Bruiserweight himself, Peter.
I'm the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne, and you're listening to the Union Smack podcast.
Welcome back to the second part of your favourite UK wrestling podcast, Union Smack, and let's crack on with it. We know how long these omnibus reviews can be, so I will try and get through this as quickly and as honestly as possible for you. And just like the vlog, if there's something you don't like, just fast forward it. We don't judge, we're just here for your entertainment. NXT UK Episode 38, the final episode from Coventry, the Coventry Sky Dome, began with a video package for the main event, the Women's Championship match between Toni Storm and Ginny. Very good video package. It detailed Toni Storm's time as champion thus far. We started in Blackpool, where she defeated Rhea Ripley, and then we fast forwarded to a few weeks ago. That interview Toni Storm did, where Ginny was watching from afar. We get some nice clips of them fighting in progress. If you've never seen their matches in progress for the Progress Women's Championship, then I urge you to go and check them out. They're very, very, very good. And the video package ends with Ginny's attack on Toni Storm and a split screen of champion and challenger. Travis Banks versus Cassius Ohno is... why did I do that? Oh no. Who knows? Travis Banks, Cassius Ohno opened us up for episode 38. Very good. Very, very good match. And I know we say this a lot on the podcast, that it was very good. But, sometimes you just don't have a dictionary, thesaurus handy, or you run out of words for things. It happens. We have a very determined start here. Both men refusing to let the other get the upper hand. Both use kicks to good use. Cassius Ohno's kicks are lethal, as are Travis Banks's. But Cassius Ohno has the weight behind him to make his look more brutal. There's a match coming up against Ligero that, just nearly takes Ligero's head off, but we'll get there. Cassius Ohno avoids the apron double stomp and pushes Travis Banks into the steps to get the upper hand. There's a very odd bit of pacing in the middle of this, where it slows to an almost crawl, and it was fine, but I would have preferred them to keep the momentum going. I know, and of course, after 30 years of watching this, the psychology that Cassius Ohno was working over the injured slash dislocated shoulder of Travis Banks, etc., which was ominous in itself, because if we're going back, Travis Banks dislocated that shoulder television wise in October, in real life wise July. So is it still going to hurt after 5 months of television time? I don't think so. I've never dislocated anything in my life. Fingers crossed I never will. But I doubt it would hurt after 5 months. Anyway, back to the match. Ono works over the shoulder well. It gives the match a nice bit of drama. The Flying Dream Crusher looked spot on. And then Travis Banks came to life. After Cassius Ohno had worn him down and done enough to supposedly re-injure the shoulder and win the match, Travis Banks just took the ball and ran with it. There was a nice spot of storytelling where he held onto the ropes with the injured shoulder to stop, several Irish whip attempts, which would presumably have ended in another Dream Crusher. The charging knee in the aisle by Banks is very good, even if it looked a bit, suspect. Covering Ono with one arm, I like this type of storytelling where somebody works on an arm or a leg and they sell it throughout the entire match to the point where they can't use it to do anything with. It's very good storytelling and it adds so much drama, and I wish people did this more, not just in WWE but on the indies as well. Travis Banks reverses a suplex, I should say, into a Kiwi Crusher for a near fall. Didn't like the fact that he kicked out of the Kiwi Crusher. We've been over people kicking out of finishing moves before. Cassius Ohno, the Rubik's Cube. Now, I don't recall seeing him using this much. I'll be honest, I haven't kept up with American NXT because I've been writing this book, and the thought of just sitting through more wrestling than I actually need to right now is a hideous thought. But this Rubik's Cube looks absolutely stupendous, and I think it's something that he should use as a finisher because it looks like it could literally break you in half. The end of the match, Banks counters into a folding press cover, just like the Bulldog did in '92 with Bret Hart for the win. Good win. Sets Travis Banks up now to go on and challenge for the United Kingdom Championship. He won't be successful, but Cassius Ohno did his job here. And though I've spent too much time talking about this match and Cassius Ohno, this is what he was brought into NXT UK for, to give those who needed a push to the next level that extra little shove. Very, very well done. Radzi is backstage with Jordan Devlin. They have a little back and forth. Jordan Devlin talks about the rematch between Pete Dunne and Walter after TakeOver New York. And he says, basically what he says is, though everybody's been talking about the rematch, the rematch of the year, quote unquote, he doesn't care, and he wants his shot at Walter and wants to prove exactly what he said to Johnny Saint a few weeks ago, that you never bet against the ace. I know Radzi's got a bad rep on Union Smack so far, and he's going to continue, because what the fuck was he doing with his facial expressions here? He looked like some type of sad little puppy dog all throughout this interview, just pouting, just somebody put me out of my misery. This bloke is all over British television at the minute. He does Crufts, which is a dog show over here. I've seen him on the World Snooker in the last few days, and it amazes me how many jobs he gets, even though he doesn't really know anything of the subject matter of what he's covering. He's got no snooker knowledge, he's got no knowledge about dogs, and he's clearly got no wrestling knowledge despite supposedly being a lifetime fan. I think it's about time we cut Radzi from NXT UK. There's a lot of deadwood in NXT UK right now, including him. So I think it's about time he was, kicked to the curb, because he's not got any better in 5 months, and I don't see him getting any better at all. This took us back to the ring for Piper Niven's NXT UK debut match against Killer Kelly. It was short. Poor Kelly. Poor Killer Kelly. She is so much better than enhancement talent, but she's going to be used like this, for the foreseeable future, sadly. She sold Piper Niven as a threat very well, in fact. She looked scared and intimidated, and like she was really struggling to move her, which, of a woman of that size, if Kelly had gone out there and just gone, yeah, I can knock you down with ease, then everybody would have gone, either Kelly doesn't know how to work, or Piper Niven isn't that big a threat. So I think Piper Niven owes a lot to Killer Kelly, actually. Even though Niven looked, very good on her own, splashes, seated Cobra clutch, and pinned her with the Michinoku driver, looked dominant. I think part of that is down to Killer Kelly, because she sold this very well. Following the match, Rhea Ripley attempted a sneak attack, but Niven caught her. This, of course, builds their feud a little bit further. A match, I will say, we're probably thinking on it now, not going to see until, I would say, July, maybe even August time, by the time they actually get to record it, because of Rhea Ripley's injury. I believe NXT UK, they've done Glasgow now. I believe they go to the Download Festival next in June, and those episodes will not make air until summer of this year. So this could be a feud that we have to wait 3-4 months to see, maybe. So fingers crossed, the payoff, which will be Rhea Ripley losing, and that will be her send-off to NXT or the main roster. Fingers crossed it's worth it, because after the absolute horror of these New York shows, and people still, after all this time, labelling NXT UK as Progress Light, they need something really, really good for the women's division. Something just perfect. And it could be it, but we'll have to wait and see. Next up, Radzi. Again, he's like fucking poverty, this bloke. He never goes away. He's with Mustache Mountain in what we're told is a video took last week. Mustache Mountain say that very soon they're going to be heading off for New York City and for WrestleMania Access, etc., etc. This is basically a by the numbers interview. They promote their match in New York with Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews. They have a little bit of back and forth with Radzi, asking him how he's going to get to Brooklyn, is he going first class, etc. It's a throwaway interview. It's literally just there to set up their match on the New York leg of the tapings. Grizzled Young Veterans, the NXT UK Tag Team Champions, are waiting backstage. As always, Zach Gibson does the talking. And in actual fact, thinking now, I don't even think James Drake has said a word whilst these two have been together. The only thing I remember him saying, and I have gone back and watched these episodes over and over again to get them, right for the book and to make sure everything's on point. I only ever remember James Drake saying something when they were confronted by Sid Scala after they'd won the NXT UK Tag Team Championships. And that was something along the lines of, I hate him or I can't stand him. Again, this is a by the numbers promo by Zach Gibson. He puts over Liverpool Football Club, who are, of course, tussling with Manchester City Football Club as I record this for the Premier League Championship. But it's here to build a match for New York. Non-title, Grizzled Young Veterans versus Williams and Jordan. Hurrah. You can hear the sarcasm in my voice, I hope. And that's what it's there for. It's literally just to put over another match. And, this is my main gripe about these shows. And I've said it, I think I must have said this every omnibus. And I'm sorry if you've listened to all of them and you're getting bored of me saying it by now. But these shows are long enough as it is. They're 55 minutes to an hour, 5 minutes tops. I think some of the New York ones were like 43 to 45 minutes, which wasn't a bad thing, let me tell you. But you've got an hour of television to fill. I understand you have to have 1 or 2 promos to put things over, etc. But the matches that we got here really could have done with more time. I would like to have seen Piper Niven and Killer Kelly get 5 more minutes, even though it was Niven's debut match. I'd have liked to have seen Tony Storm and Ginny get 5 more minutes, in the main event. I'd have liked to have seen 10 more minutes tagged on to Travis Banks and Cassius Ohno. Some will say it was the perfect amount of time. 10 more minutes on that opener would have made it a takeover-worthy classic. This Grizzled Young Veterans promo and the Mustache Mountain interview. Sorry, I lost the train of thought then. The matches they set up could have been done in 30 seconds with 2 match plates. Like, this is coming next week, this is coming the week after. That's what we're giving you as your main events for the next 2 episodes in New York. All the words and the chat are just wasting our time. Needlessly. And I say this, until I've bored myself, I think, in the book. Hopefully it won't bore you if and when you read it. But let's just cut the shit and concentrate on the in-ring product, because it's really starting to take a back seat in some episodes, and NXT UK is starting to suffer because of it, at least in my opinion. I'm sure you'll have, a different one. Next up was Joseph Connors versus Jack Stars. Basic squash match. I don't know why they needed to highlight Joseph Connors in this way. He means nothing to NXT UK anymore. In fact, I read not so long ago, I think it was during the Coventry tapings in February, that Joseph Connors isn't even on an NXT UK contract anymore. He's working, by the date. So what you're doing here is you're highlighting a man who doesn't just mean nothing to the company. He's not even signed to NXT UK anymore. So why are you putting him over? You're not doing it for Killer Kelly, who's twice as talented as Joseph Connors. Some won't agree with that. But Connors is the most boring man I've ever seen wrestle, and I've watched the great Carly. Some of his matches have been fine, but, he's only as good as his last opponent. Jack Stars puts up a fight in this, possibly gets too much in, but I'm only really saying that because, it dragged this match out. It was a dud. Connors wins with the don't look down. Let's move on. We see Tony Storm and Ginny preparing backstage for the main event, which is the next match on the card. But before that, oh God. Before that, we get another Dave. I mean, just another. Why Triple H? Another Dave Mastiff in the gym promo. And I'm saying Triple H like he produced this. He didn't. Jeff Jarrett produced these shows. So why, Jeff? Why? I don't get them. I really, really don't get them. Not only are they hideously boring, it's like it's literally just watching him lift weights. But the script they give him, it's banal. It's such a banal little script where he talks about his dad was a harsh man and he couldn't tell him he loved him, and that he can't show weakness anymore and he needs to be strong, he needs to build his strength up. And Dave, you've said this all before. And I'm not shitting all over this garbage for the sake of it. I want NXT UK to be better, I want it to be looked at as NXT is looked at in America. But with shit like this, it's not going to be. Right now, Dave Mastiff is so far down NXT UK's list of priorities. Now that they've found a new muse in Walter, do we care? You know, Dave Mastiff deserves so much better because he is such a good wrestler, but he's not going to get it. You know, they're not going to push him over Walter. He's going to be stuck now in that mid-card for God knows how long. And just like a lot of the other wrestlers, you know, on this roster, the Eddie Dennises, even, I'm going to say the Mark Andrews, because unless they turn Flash Morgan Webster heel soon, Mark Andrews is going nowhere. Dave Mastiff could probably be released now, and you wouldn't know he was gone. Harsh, but true. Finally, we get to the main event of the evening. NXT UK Women's Championship. Champion Toni Storm, challenger Ginny. I enjoyed this to a point. I'm not going to say it was the best match they've ever had. They did give it some importance with fisticuffs right out the gate. I like that. You know, just let's forget the lockup. Let's just go at it hammer and tongs. Jim Cornette will be rolling in his grave at this beginning, but I quite liked it. Ginny, lovely dragon screw into a seated surfboard. It's a very good move. Camel clutch into a Toni Storm sit-down surfboard. So some nice back and forth here. It was a very pro Toni Storm crowd as well. You know, NXT UK fans love Toni Storm. I'm sure the picture leak helped them love her more. Ginny did her best to try and wear Toni Storm down. Storm came back with Germans. Attempted the Storm Zero. Didn't work. Ginny's X Factor from the second rope. Some very, very nice heat there. And I don't know whether you caught it, but when Ginny hit the X Factor from the second rope, it actually looked like she'd won the title. If you go back and replay the pinfall from that, Toni Storm actually only gets her foot on the rope because Ginny leans too far forward on the pinfall. So that, you know, there's a story there still to come. Ginny could come out in a month or in time for the next takeover, when I'm sure she'll challenge Storm for the title and win it. If you want to build that storyline, you can have Ginny come out and say, I won that title. I won it fair and square, but it was my own mistake that, you know, cost me it. And build up, you know, build that. It's a good a place to start as any. Ginny tried a Storm Zero. Storm counters with a headbutt. Counters a running Hurricane Rana into a powerbomb. And Storm Zero for the win. Good match. I encourage you to go and watch it if you haven't. Both women really acquitted themselves well here. Toni Storm is a beloved champion. Ginny is a hated heel. She's got some, you know, things going on for her when we hit the Glasgow leg of the tapings. And I'm excited about where Ginny's going. She is, without a doubt, the next NXT UK Women's Champion. And I would imagine she will be by the end of August. Overall, episode 38 was a decent episode. The Coventry leg has been my favourite, you know, leg of shows so far. Over Blackpool, Liverpool, you know, Birmingham, Plymouth, even Cambridge. I love the Cambridge setting. I think if you'd have put the Plymouth, what the fuck am I talking about? If you'd have put the Coventry quality into the Cambridge setting, it would have been perfect. Great match to open, good match to end. Perfect dominant debut for Piper Niven. The only bad thing about this really was the unneeded promos and the Joseph Connor squash. So I thoroughly recommend you go and check this episode out. I hope you've got the toilet paper ready, because we are about to review some of the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen on NXT UK so far, and we sat through the Phoenix shows, which weren't great. NXT UK Episode 39. Oh, we're going to race through these, honestly, because they were awful. We start out with a Coffee Brothers versus Raul Mendoza and Humberto Carrillo match. And before I go any further, I should stress for anyone who hasn't seen these or didn't get these, and I know there was someone on Twitter who pointed out, why do we have to have so many NXT stars in NXT UK? Well, there's two reasons. Firstly, NXT UK didn't ship their whole roster to New York. They shipped the most important people. Mastiff, the Coffee Brothers, Dunn and Walter were already there for TakeOver. Tony Storm, Piper Niven, Rhea Ripley, etc. They shipped maybe 10 of their most important stars. And this was meant to tie in with the whole Worlds Collide thing on the network. NXT UK versus NXT. Apart from the main event, which was all NXT UK. That was one reason. The second reason is because Triple H said not so long ago that he wants more integration of both NXT brands. And it won't stop here. There is a planned NXT Germany. There is a planned and upcoming NXT Japan. So I imagine once Triple H gets those two up and running, we will see even more integration of all four of these NXT brands. So I agree with people like Cassius Ohno coming in, because he can add something to the performance centre and the training aspect. But some of these choices, seriously, Raul Mendoza and Humberto Carrillo, two good stars in their own right, but on 205 Live and NXT, on their own brands. Here they just look like cannon fodder. Carrillo was impressive with his athleticism, but that was probably the only impressive thing about this match. It was standard beyond belief. Literally just to get the coffees over after they lost to Pete Dunne and Walter a couple of weeks back. That was literally the only reason this existed for. And it looked like it as well. It was disgusting. There was a point in this match where Joe and Mark Coffey were standing around in the ring waiting for, I think it was Humberto Carrillo, to tag in Raul Mendoza. But instead of making it look like a struggle, he literally, I think he just sidestepped them and just jumped. And it looked really bad. If you go back and watch this, not that, I'd recommend it, and not that I'd want you to. It just looks so bad. The atmosphere as well, which we'll talk about in a minute, is dead. And Joe Coffey pins Raul Mendoza with all the best for the bells. Never gets out of first gear this match, and the Coffey brothers didn't even shine. In a match designed to get them over, they just looked ordinary. Very, very poor. We get an extended and overly long Cassius Ohno promo here. He basically berates the reporter for pronouncing his name as Cassius instead of Cassius. And then he gets into, basically tears into Ligero, setting up a match between them two next week. Or next episode for us. We're shown highlights of Walter beating Pete Dunne at TakeOver. I'm sure you know how thrilled I was rewatching this. I haven't even gone back and rewatched the match yet. So to be reminded was just, what a treat. I mean, fucking hell. People like Flash Morgan Webster, Amir Jordan, Kathy Kelly, for some, just don't. Mark Andrews, etc. They all comment on the match. Jordan Devlin weighs it in again. He doesn't like the sound of, or even care about a rematch between the two. And then Walter interrupts him. Little stare down, and setting up a match between them two way too soon, but we'll get into that. Dave Mastiff versus Kona Reeves is the next match. One of the dullest matches you'll see in 2019. Why you would book Kona Reeves, the most pointless man in NXT history, bar none. Why you would book him on a television taping like this? It baffles me. It absolutely baffles me. You're trying to get NXT UK's image over in the States, where NXT UK isn't that popular anyway, and you put Kona Reeves on here. Of all the NXT UK locker room you've got to choose from, it's Kona Reeves. This should have been a squash. I would have been happy and not complained in the slightest had Mastiff pinned him in a minute. Reeves looks awful. He's in the middle of, being out of shape and in shape, and that looks horrible as well. This is full of dull rest holds. Reeves' straitjacket choke, it just drains the life out of this completely. Mastiff wins with Into the Void, and, let's move on. Honestly, if you're going to carry on doing this, if you're going to carry on holding shows in America and put in NXT UK talent who you want to get over with the crowd against names that people do not care about, then you've only got yourself to blame when it doesn't work. Honestly, it's that bad. Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews are up next. They look like they're literally standing behind the entrance curtain. This is just like the Mustache Mountain interview from last week. It's here to put over their main event match next episode against Trent Seven and Tyler Bate. That's literally all it's there for. And by God, can we get Mark Andrews off of the microphone? He sounds like one of them characters that you can't stand in a Beverly Hills 90210 or a teen drama of the 90s that you watched when you were 14 and thought it was cool, and then you turned 15, 16 and looked back on it and thought it was trash. He can't talk, he sounds forced, and Mark Andrews is a good case of not everyone in wrestling needs to speak. Radsey is waiting backstage for Dave Mastiff to come through the curtain like a dirty little stalker. He congratulates Dave Mastiff on the win, and then Wolfgang interrupts the pair. They have a little tete-a-tete, a little shove, bit of back and forth between who's the better big man. Dave Mastiff challenges Wolfgang to a match as they're separated by referees, and we will see this transpire in Glasgow in the next few weeks. Rhea Ripley versus Casey Catanzaro. I can never pronounce the woman's name. Great reception for Rhea Ripley. She will be a star when she moves to NXT or the main roster. Fingers crossed NXT full time. People know her. People love her. So the signs are looking promising for a move for her. Catanzaro looks amazing with what she's allowed to do. The handstand head scissors takedown on the ropes is particularly beautiful. Her pace also is, something brilliant. But when you're dating Ricochet, then bound to rub off on her. That might have been a sex joke. I'll leave you to work it out yourself. Ripley looks like the bully she was born to be. Brutally ruthless. Manhandles Catanzaro perfectly. This is a little sloppy in places, but it makes up for it with moves such as Catanzaro turning the suplex into a small package, which was very nice. Ripley wins with a riptide. What else do you want? It wasn't bad. It's not the best, but it was certainly better than the two matches we've been given thus far. Ripley attacks Casey afterwards with the cloverleaf. And then the next segment is basically Casey Catanzaro holding her ribs backstage. Ripley approaches her and tells her this is exactly what happens when she steps into her division, that she ends up in medical. And then Piper Niven interrupts them. Travis contacted me on Twitter earlier this week after he'd watched this episode to say that Piper Niven, and I'm sure there's many people out there who think she's beautiful. I am one of them. But she looks like, I think he said, a homeless cat lady or something along those lines in the glasses that she wears. And you can't dispute that. Just go back and look at it. Next up, Radzi catches Ginny coming in from Access. This is a nothing segment. He asks her if she's got a message for the fans after a loss to Toni Storm. She just walks away. Best thing to do is what I'd do. Cross the street to avoid him. The main event of this episode is a non-title match. Grizzled Young Veterans, Kenny Williams, Amir Jordan. There is a half-hearted effort by this lazy-ass fucking crowd. And now we're into the main event. I just want to talk a bit about this crowd. Now, unlike Phoenix, NXT UK in Brooklyn was taped on one day, which means the tickets sold were purposely sold for NXT UK. The American audience didn't buy these tickets to watch Worlds Collide and got NXT UK tapings as a bonus. So they can't use that as an excuse. NXT UK, all three of these episodes were taped back to back over the course of 3 hours on one day, and nothing else was taped that day. No Worlds Collide, no nothing else. So the people who bought these tickets bought them purposely to see NXT UK. Now, I don't understand why you would buy tickets to purposely see a show you've got no interest in, to purposely watch wrestlers you don't care about or have never heard of, or to just sit there with your hands in your lap, you know, playing with yourself every time Toni Storm comes on camera. There's a video out there if you want to do that. It actually brought all these tapings down. The booking on these, 3 episodes wasn't great anyway, but the crowd, it was like going back to Lafayette, Louisiana all over again. They were just uninterested. Rhea Ripley got a nice pop. Dave Mastiff got murmurs. And the rest of them just got, we don't care about you. But that's basically what the audience was saying. Terrible, terrible audience. And, audiences like this and the audience that NXT UK play to in Phoenix are some of the main reasons, as well as the booking, the lazy, hideous booking, why I wouldn't take NXT UK on the road again. I wouldn't take it back to America for a few years even, until you've had a chance to really push the brand as something special and got these names over with another audience. Anyway, now I've had that little rant, back to the match. It was decent. It wasn't as good as they could have done. Wasn't as good as, any of them have ever had, really. It was mostly by the numbers. James Drake impressed me most here. Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan played the underdog duo who were battling for a title shot. Zach Gibson sold the burst eardrum he supposedly received against Oney Lorcan very well. That was the real crux of the match. He spent a lot of time on the outside selling the ear. James Drake had to command the last 5 to 7 minutes of this. And it was very well done by James Drake, I have to say. This man has really come into his own. I can't give him enough credit. And it got to the point where Grizzled Young Veterans took the count-out loss. Lazy. I mean, it's difficult to explain because it's both lazy and very well done characteristically. Because Grizzled Young Veterans are the champions. They didn't need the win, but they needed to win to stop Jordan and Williams basically beating them and claiming number 1 contendership. They lived to fight another day, and while the result was suspect, the way it was done gets a thumbs up from me. As for the match itself, you don't need to watch it. If don't go out of your way at least to watch it. There was some standout moments here. The poetry in motion to Amir Jordan on the apron. Lovely bit of wrestling that. Kenny Williams always brings any matches into life. However, the rest holds were too much. Let's not forget this match was only 10 minutes long. That's where it clocked in. Just over 10 minutes. The rest holds would have been fine for a 20-minute match. But for a match that was so short and looked rushed in places, you just didn't need so many of them. So the official result, Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan defeat the Grizzled Young Veterans via count-out, and now they will go on to claim a Tag Team Championship match, which, without giving you spoilers, doesn't quite work out how they would have liked. And I'm fingers crossed, hoping that what happens in Glasgow, I'm trying to be very careful here in case people haven't read the spoilers, leads to a Kenny Williams heel turn. Just anything to get Amir Jordan out of the spotlight. This episode ends with a special look at Pete Dunne after he's lost the title. They bill it as a Pete Dunne exclusive. It's basically him sitting in the Performance Centre going through, his time as champion, his career thus far. He says that people got so used to him as champion that they forgot about the chase. It was a nice little promo by Pete Dunne. He's not, he's my favourite wrestler in the world today, and he would rank in my top 5 of all time, probably. He's not the best promo guy, I will say. This, however, was spot on, and it basically all led to him demanding a rematch from Walter, which he does get in Glasgow, and it leads to something bigger. I'm assuming we'll go through that in our next Omnibus review next month. So episode 39, what can you say? 97% trash. Honestly, utter garbage. And that's me being kind to it. The production values were poor. The booking was poor. Though the staging and the setting looked like more of an indie arena than it did in Phoenix, it was still very poorly done. Certain camera angles you could see access behind. When the crowd was silent, you could hear people having their access experience behind the curtain. You could hear the air conditioning at points if you listened very, very carefully. And sadly, it's not an episode you need to see. It's not an episode I will ever go back and watch again. Thankfully, I've already reviewed it for the book. And unfortunately, this is how it will continue over the next 2 episodes. However, before we get to episodes 40 and 41, I am going to take one more little break because, as you can hear, my voice is beginning to crack. I don't smoke, but I'm sure I sound like someone who's on 40 a day. Travis will find something to fill the next few minutes with, and I will see you on the other side.
Habiki TMD on YouTube, retro gaming, pro wrestling, podcast, never drew a dime, Habiki honors, Habiki quickie, everything in between. Hit that subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at the Habiki TMD. And hey! Watch out for pedestrians, pal! You on the bike, slow down! Subscribe.
We are back, the final part of our NXT UK Omnibus. And the final part of this week's Union Smack. NXT UK episode 40 began with Ligero versus Cassius Ohno. The match set up by the overly long Cassius Ohno promo from episode 39. There was a camera shot at the beginning of this that showed just how unpopular NXT UK is in America, sadly. The camera cut square on the ring and the aisle, and to the left, eagle-eyed viewers would have caught the basic emptiness underneath the hard camera. I'm sure there wasn't that much standing space or that many seats there anyway, because it looked like a smallish area. However, what space was there it just wasn't filled. They couldn't sell the tickets for it, sadly. Cassius Ohno again plays the bully he was born to play. He's so good at this role. Pushed Ligero around. Some wicked kicks. Almost took Ligero's head off with the kick coming out the corner. Ligero battled back well with his aerial arsenal. Against the bigger man, it always looks more impressive than against someone, the size of Mark Andrews or Flash Morgan Webster, or the size of Ligero himself. There was, however, a moment in this match where it looked like a botch, but they made it into part of the match. So I'm going to go on record and say I'm not sure whether it was a botch or not. But the moment I'm talking about is Ligero comes off the apron with a rolling senton. However, it looked like both he and Cassius Ohno misjudged the space around ringside, and Ligero hit the steps quite hard. The commentators tried to pass it off as a counter by Cassius Ohno, which makes me think it was a botch, because their explanation sounded rushed and just frantic if anything, made up on the spot. And Nigel McGuinness and Vic Joseph were live here. They were live in the Brooklyn Pier 12 arena. We get a very, very nice version of a surfboard by Cassius Ohno, where he locks Ligero's feet underneath his and bends him back over his knees. It's these little touches that make a Cassius Ohno match more special than just your average Joe's match. He's got the technical ability to make normal moves look even more painful and special than they already do. And this is the sort of thing he can bring to the UK Performance Centre and to the NXT roster if they're willing to learn, which I hope a lot of them are. Sadly, as good as Cassius Ohno and Ligero are, and as much as they tried to make this special, the crowd, again, same crowd as last episode, just drained the life out of this match. And you could tell that they were draining the life out of Ligero and Cassius Ohno as well, because the pacing of this match just slowed hideously. It was almost as if they'd done 5 to 7 minutes and they'd got little reaction from the crowd, and then they just thought, why are we bothering? Why the fuck are we bothering if they don't care? Ligero came back. His comebacks against bigger men are the stuff underdogs and underdog stories are made of. Wonderful Canadian Destroyer. I know Travis hates the move, but on a man like Cassius Ohno, it might look absurd, because obviously Ligero's not getting him over without, Ohno's cooperation. It does still look good, for me at least. And then Ohno counters a springboard stunner by grabbing the mask. He tries to take it off, but he gets it far enough up Ligero's face to blind him, and then he cracks him with the Dream Crusher for the victory. This would have been a stunner in front of a UK crowd. The American crowd killed it, as American crowds tend to do. No offence to all our American listeners. I love you. But, if it hadn't been for the crowd, this would have been amazing. Jordan Devlin is backstage. We're informed it's earlier in the day. He's asked what his feelings are on the big match between Walter and he, which will be the main event of the next episode 41. He says you'd think he'd be happy that his pestering of Johnny Saint had paid off, but he's not happy because it's a non-title match, because Johnny Saint wants to protect the rematch of the century between Dunn and Walter. and he's going to make himself undeniable to all those who have underestimated him. To all those who don't believe in him, he's going to show them that he's the calibre of a UK champion. And I believe him. Jordan Devlin is the future of this brand. Now Pete Dunne is moving onwards and upwards. Marcel Bartel and Fabian Eichner are at WrestleMania Access in yet another pointless little promo. I'm not going to run through everything they do here because it's almost the exact same promo we got from them last time. The mat is sacred, etc., etc. The fans are wrong. The fans are the problem. We already know this. If you've been on Twitter, just spend 24 hours on Twitter in the wrestling community and you'll know that the majority of the fans are the problem. Especially new fans. Fuck you if you're a new fan. The highlight of this is seeing the old WWF 93 to 94 neon entrance that they've got for fans to have their pictures taken with. Thankfully, if you've not read the spoilers for the Glasgow tapings of NXT UK, then the company are actually going to do something with Bartel and Eichner at last, because they've been treading water for too long when they should have been the start of that tag team division. Speaking of pointless segments and promos, the beautiful Toni Storm comes out next to a decent reaction, and she's looking very hot, very stunning. But the promo is meh. What this promo is, and I've got it word for word here for the book, but I'm not going to bore you with it. She basically puts over the NXT UK women's division. She goes through a few names, etc., etc. The names get the obligatory cheer, even though the American fans don't care. And that's it. Then she has a stare down with Kaylee Ray on the aisle as Ray comes out for a match. This is completely pointless. She's putting over the NXT UK women's division in front of a crowd who probably aren't even going to see the evolution of that division, after they leave these tapings. Just by the reaction that this crowd gives, that the majority of them don't watch NXT UK. So why do it? I'm sure they thought it would be a great idea because the day after this, 2 days after this, I should say, they taped the Worlds Collide, Women Collide special. And a lot of the audience here would have been in attendance for that. And that, of course, featured Toni Storm, Piper Niven, Kaylee Ray, etc. So I'm sure they thought that was a great idea. But this is a promo that was built for a UK audience. A UK audience who is going to invest in this product over the next year. Not an audience who's going to forget about it in an hour and a half time when they've left Brooklyn Pier 12, where this was, of course, recorded. Speaking of Kaylee Ray, she faces Xia Li next. NXT's Xia Li. Another odd choice with all the fucking talent that NXT have got on their books. Xia Li is a great performer. Don't get me wrong. Don't come at me in the comments or on Twitter because I'll just ignore you or tell you to fuck off, one or the other. But they had no chemistry. They had nothing, these two. I don't believe they've ever worked together before. They could have over in Stardom or Pro Wrestling Eve or anywhere else that does great women's wrestling. Anywhere else other than WWE. But they had no chemistry. This never got out of second gear. And it played to library silence. You could hear the crickets chirping away in the stands. Kaylee Ray wins with a gory bomb, which I don't know whether to call it the gory bomb or the Widow's Peak, seeing that's what Nigel McGuinness calls it. Either way, Kaylee Ray wins with it. And I'm sorry, but this is not a NXT or even NXT UK caliber match. It looked like it had been thrown on to fill time. Piper Niven is shown signing autographs at WrestleMania Access next. She's asked about Rhea Ripley, but before that, we get another maddening statement which drives me fucking insane. The reporter says she's been, let me get this right, incredibly impressive since debuting in NXT UK. How? She's had one match. She has had one match which went, I believe, 5 minutes against Killer Kelly. How can you say she has been incredibly impressive? It's just utter bollocks. The people who write these scripts, the people who produce these shows, produce progress. You know, the people who produce these shows help produce ICW. They know what they're doing, and yet they write garbage like this. It boggles the fucking mind and annoys the shit out of me. She's then asked about Rhea Ripley, and she goes along the lines of, you can't deny she's a phenomenal athlete, etc., etc., etc. But now let's see how she likes that there's somebody a little bit too big to push around on the scene. Again, building up the match between Ripley and Niven, which we will get, I'm assuming, at the Download Festival. Which should be interesting, actually, in a tent to see how, basically a tent full of people react to it. We're taken backstage as Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan's ring gear is being thrown against the wall. We see the grizzled young veterans basically trashing their property, and Zach Gibson says that they've done nothing to deserve the spot, blah de blah, etc. It's all the usual things, and that Williams and Jordan can change in the corridor. I mean, let's move on. Main event time, and Mustache Mountain versus Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster. Great match. This and the main event of episode 41 are the two best matches for me on the entire 3 shows. This was all go. And do you know what? The crowd did well here. I will give the crowd credit. They popped for all 4 men. Bate and Andrews, some great back and forth. Flash Morgan Webster, what a star. I believe he turned heel recently on a Progress show, Super Strong Style 16. Him and Wild Boar as a tag team. The 918 or the 981, I can't remember what the team's called. If NXT UK don't watch that and replicate his heel turn here, they're missing a trick and they're killing off a character. He was born to be a heel. Here he counters Trent Seven's power and size wonderfully. Backflip into a drop toe hold is absolutely gorgeous. Tyler Bate tries to one-up him with a double aeroplane spin and big swing. He then catches Flash Morgan Webster off a suicide dive into an aeroplane spin. Both great spots. And both teams give the best of their arsenal. You can't complain with this. I saw it got like a 2.5 star rating. I think it deserved at least a 4. It was that good. It wasn't anything we hadn't seen before, but it was very, very good indeed, especially after the tripe they'd made us sit through. Very nice spot where Trent Seven feeds Webster into Andrews' arm in a DDT setup, slaps Andrews, and Andrews DDTs Webster. Very, very well done. Webster breaks the pin with his Shadows over Malice senton. Nearly misses. The bicycle knee reverse Hurricane Rana to Tyler Bate is breathtaking. And Mustache Mountain win with the Burning Hammer diving knee combo. However, if you go back and look at it again, Tyler Bate completely overshoots and misses, by a mile. By an absolute mile. The camera work here and Trent Seven's immediate reflexes and reactions cover for it initially, but you can see it on replay. He just misses by a mile. And that was episode 40. I'd say one of the better episodes, but in reality, ring wise, it was another baffling one up until the main event. Ligero versus Cassie Sono. They tried their best, God bless them. The crowd weren't interested. They killed that off straight away. Xia Li, for me, was just another off-the-cuff booking opponent for Kaylee Ray. It didn't make sense at all. And the main event was very, very good. This wasn't the worst episode of NXT UK, but again, the way it was booked was just baffling. Absolutely baffling. Do not go out of your way to see this. Watch the main event. If you've got the time, watch Cassie Sono versus Ligero. But apart from that, you don't need to bother. So, with my voice rapidly on its way out, as you can hear, we are going to get this done as quick as possible. NXT UK episode 41 began with Travis Banks versus Mansoor, and just like we were talking about before, baffling, absolutely baffling why you give Travis Banks someone like Mansoor. In the back, you had wrestlers like Dominik Dijakovic. You even had Luke Harper. It's absolutely mind-blowing why you would have them people in the back, especially Dijakovic, a man, let's not forget, who is looking for a massive opportunity, an opening in the market to impress NXT UK management. He had a wonderful match against Luke Harper at Worlds Collide. Him versus Travis Banks would have been magic. Even him versus Dave Mastiff on episode 39 would have been much better booking. I do not understand this in the slightest, why you'd pull out someone like Mansoor. This didn't do Mansoor any good at all. He got way too much in. This should have been a squash match, but it wasn't. Banks, the highlight of this for me was the suicide dive, which nearly tore Mansoor in half. Banks wins with the Kiwi Crusher, and I'm moving on. What the actual fuck did they give us next? I mean, if you've not seen this episode yet, I urge you, just so you know I'm not exaggerating or taking a big, dirty, steamy, smelly dump on this, just for the sake of it, go back and watch Xia Brookside's promo at the UK Performance Centre. It is done in an array of outtakes, and if they're not bad enough, her delivery of absolutely every word is like listening to a child in the playground telling you why they've just wet their pants. It's absolutely hideous. Hideous in every way, shape or form. And the script absolutely kills this off anyway. But her delivery, I don't know what they're doing. Are they building her into a character that's meant to be childish and lovable? Or are they literally just don't give a shit about her anymore and trying to bury her, so they've got an excuse to let her go? I absolutely don't know. The worst of this is that she actually says these words. Even though last time I wrestled Rhea Ripley, I did get a bit of a loss. But she doesn't say it as if she's disheartened. She says it as if, oops, oh well, never mind, doesn't matter. And yet in the weeks leading up to battling Rhea Ripley, she was in promos at the PC saying that she didn't like bullies. She'd been bullied all her life because of her father and her family name, and she was ready to stand up to those bullies. And yet here, well, it was as if that Xia Brookside had never existed. And then the icing on top of this shitty Sunday was right at the very end of this. She did an aeroplane sound, and I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. She did an aeroplane sound and then did a flying motion on her way back to the ring. What the fuck are you doing? What the... Oh, honestly, I can't get over how annoyed I am with this. Could they not have made these episodes any more of a joke? They go and put this in. Absolutely mind-blowing. It's like you almost have to congratulate whoever came up with this and whoever wrote it, because it was that bad. So you thought Monday Night Raw was utter garbage, and the writing and storylines there were bad, which they are. It's a disgrace to wrestling and television in general. This would have fitted perfectly on Monday nights. That is how bad it was. Thankfully, afterwards, we got a highlight package for Ilya Dragunov. We're informed, is coming soon. Nina Samuels' vignette airs next, where she basically challenges Toni Storm for the NXT UK Women's Championship. Nina Samuels is growing on me as a performer. I originally thought, after watching this, it was too soon for her to challenge Storm, but then in the cold light of day, when she loses, no spoilers, but we all know she's going to. And I do know the results going forward, because I look at the tapings in case there's anything we need to know, and of course that I need to know for the book that isn't storyline related. A loss can only benefit her, in my opinion, especially if it's a heroic loss for a heel. If she doesn't go down easy, no pun intended, if she doesn't go down easy and she puts up a real fight of it, then they can build on that with her and build her into a real stalwart challenger who is championship ready come the end of the year. And I think if Ginny is champion by then Ginny, Kaylee Ray, Nina Samuels, Piper Niven, you've got a top four of that division that's really ready to carry it into 2020 and make it arguably even better than the NXT women's division. Piper Niven versus Reina Gonzalez. I thought I'd hate this match. However, Reina Gonzalez's character, she's a cross between Stan Hansen and the Blackjacks, and she gives off that NWA 80s vibe. And this match really does. It's no more than 5 minutes, but aura-wise and feeling-wise, it does what Stan Hansen versus Lex Luger did way back when. Gonzalez controls the bigger babyface very well, and it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. You really have to watch this and have watched some of the NWA stuff in the 1980s with Hanson, etc., to know what I'm talking about. I know Travis will know what I'm talking about. I know Rocky will know what I'm talking about. I know a lot of our good viewers will know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, go back and watch Stan Hansen versus Lex Luger, and then go back and watch some of the Blackjack matches against equal or bigger opposition, and then watch this, and it's the same vibe. It's very, very well done. Whether they meant to do that or not, I'm sure they'll say they did. It's also a very nice slugfest between two big bruisers. Great change of pace for the episode, and Niven wins with the Michinoku driver. She gets in maybe a handful of moves, does Piper Niven, but those handful of moves she makes count. Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan are backstage in the same stone hallway where their ring attire was cast from the locker room by the Grizzled Young Veterans in episode 40. They basically, say that Grizzled Young Veterans can't be locker room leaders because you can't lead a locker room you know nothing about, and they've been in the business longer than Gibson and Drake say, etc., etc. And then they say that they're going to go and find Johnny Storm and ask for an NXT UK Tag Team Championship match, which is confirmed by Johnny Storm's Twitter for the main event of episode 42, which will be coming your way next month. Gallus are outside the Braehead Arena in Glasgow, where the Glasgow leg of tapings will emanate from. They basically, I'm not going through the whole thing because it's nothing we haven't heard before, but they say it's still their city, still their kingdom, and Glasgow is Gallus. The main event, finally, because my voice is starting to go, I can feel the strain on it. Walter versus Jordan Devlin, non-title match. Very, very, very good. Once you get past the odd pacing of the first 5 minutes, this is a belter of a main event. Doesn't live up to the previous matches in Progress and OTT and everywhere else they fought, but for a TV match, it was never going to. They're not going to put 30 minutes of excellence out there in front of a crowd this bad. And I have to say, before we get into this, the crowd was very good for this episode, which is baffling because it's been the same crowd for the past two. It's like someone gave them $100 each and told them to cheer. Just wake the fuck up. Had they done so before, these tapings may have been remembered more fondly. There's a huge reaction for Walter, who still bears the marks from the match with Pete Dunne at TakeOver, seeing as this was literally the next day after he won the title. The title still got the Pete Dunne side plates on it. That's how soon it was after the TakeOver Classic. Jordan Devlin sells excellently for Walter. All the hard shots, all the chops. And then, logically, Devlin works on the legs, takes away Walter's vertical base, and Walter sells well as well. I can't grumble here. Is Walter growing on me? Maybe. You know, he's done a lot lately against Pete Dunne, here against Jordan Devlin. In the rematch against Pete Dunne in Glasgow, and then what's to come after that. I will not spoil it for you. We will go over that in our next Omnibus review. He's done a lot to prove that he's more than just chops and power bombs. So we'll continue to monitor that. Devlin, he busts Walter's mouth open inadvertently with a double axe handle to the face. And then the pace really picks up as they trade chops, reversals, German suplexes. It doesn't warrant the "this is awesome" chant that it gets, but, you know, it is what it is. Very nice reversal of a powerbomb by Jordan Devlin. It's nearly a Canadian destroyer. Very, very nearly. The only downside to this was the two botches on the Devlin side. First one from the second rope, he nearly dropped Walter on his neck because of the way Walter came off the second rope. And the second one, when he went for the second at Devlin's side, Walter looked a bit hesitant taking it. He had to take a second run up. But once he got the elevation and the height on it, it looked very, very good. Walter wins with a powerbomb and a great leverage pin where he just basically balances his whole body and all his weight on Devlin's crumpled up body. Very good way for a champion to win. I expect to see him pin a lot of people with that before he loses the title. And then Pete Dunne comes out, demands his rematch, Walter nods, and the episode ends in a stare down. Episode 41 was by far the best episode of the New York tapings. It didn't make up for, what we'd been put through. However, I would say before they think about taking NXT on the road again, then not only would I think twice, but you really have to expose it in a different way. You can't expose NXT UK to an audience who doesn't care or doesn't know about it or its stars. like this every time. I understand the logic of giving it to them in person will hopefully make them care, but it doesn't. It really doesn't. Find another way, because you're killing off the brand. I'll be honest, this is done. These 3 episodes, even though 41 was much, much better, have done more damage than good. Especially if you're watching it on television. It's just the audience didn't care. It made the matches, the booking, the brand, everything just look completely unimportant. And if you'd only ever seen those 3 shows of NXT UK, you wouldn't tune in again. You wouldn't. You'd look at the booking, you'd look at the matches, you'd look at the fan reaction and think, well, no one cares about it, so why would I every week? Sadly, I believe WWE will take NXT UK on the road again for SummerSlam, which is a massive mistake. But if you're gonna do it, if they absolutely won't accept failure, if they won't look at their shortcomings and look at Phoenix and these 3 episodes from New York as and judge where it is with an American audience, then at least book NXT UK. And my voice is going, so we're going to end this week's episode in a minute. But at least book NXT UK as you book it in England. Don't just take half the wrestlers and then make up the rest of the roster with NXT, guys and girls that you're not using. Because you're pandering to an American audience who are missing out on the UK indie experience, if you get what I'm saying. Take the whole experience to them, and then they might actually see that it's a different alternative to what they're being fed on Monday and Tuesday nights. It's even a different alternative to NXT itself. A lot of these, American audiences who are weaned on Raw and SmackDown, they don't see Progress, they don't see ICW and Rev Pro and all the other great promotions we've got over here. And a lot of them, I would bet my soul, have not seen, UK indie wrestling as it stands today. So you're missing out on the chance to give them that, and that's criminal. So if you're going to do it again for SummerSlam, I hope they don't. I really hope they don't. But if they are, take the whole NXT UK roster, book proper NXT UK shows, show these American audiences what else is out there, that there is more alternatives than what they're, the bullshit they're being force-fed. And maybe if you do that, if you stop pandering to your American audience and you give them what you'd give an English audience, the quality, if you focus on the quality of the show instead of trying to please those who've bought tickets, and in the long run, you might get a wider fan base. A wider fan base who see that, what NXT UK is trying to do, and the stars we have, and the matches them stars can put on, is better than a lot of what they're being given. I hope you understood all that, because I can't explain it anymore. With that said, that is this week's edition of Union Smack. Thank you so very much for listening. Do tune in next week for our retro review of the very first NXT UK. That's if I have any voice left. Me and Travis will be back together for that. The first time we've recorded together since Wrestle War 90, I believe. A month and a bit ago. Certainly before WrestleMania. So do join us for that. And once again, you can find me on Twitter at The Perfect Tenant. You can find Travis on Twitter at The Habiki TMD. You can buy our official merchandise at unionsmack.bigcartel.com. That is shirts and my book, and more stuff will be going up throughout the year. And also, don't forget to support the channel. All your retro gaming needs, your retro wrestling needs, present day wrestling needs, vlog needs, all covered here. And of course, pop over to Future Wrestling and support our good friend Logan on his 2K19 series, which is actually very, very good. So thank you again for watching. We can't wait for you to join us next week. And until then, cheerio, mate.